So finally, now we come down to some of the ideas for individual sites and some of the special things that can happen along Main Street. So the first of these is the Pig Creek Historic Path. And this would be a path that runs from the museum, uh, crosses both Church and Main Street, goes north of the Moose Building, and then continues up to about Second and Green Street, where it then intersects with the neighborhoods to the north. The idea for the historic path is to put a walking path, 6 foot, typically 6 feet wide. It's not meant as a bicycle facility by any means. It's a calm walking path that would start at the museum site and have historic features along it that tell the story of Mascouta's about 175-year history. It's impressive that the city has that long history. So that becomes a central corridor. The crossings of both Church and Main are designed so that they will be easily crossed. And a major feature at the north end of the historic path would be using a currently unused part of the Moose property or property that's not used, and it's near that drainage way as a park. And an open space there would be very appropriate and would really be a nice thing to have for the neighborhood and for this entire project. But the historic path is not all that happens along here. We have a couple of interesting opportunities for commercial development. There's the former car dealership, which is number 8 that you see here, that may be developing for another purpose, but has a retail front and a possibility of workshop space behind. And the service station at the former service station at Second and Main, that we think would be really a pretty wonderful ice cream shop with some site work around it. So interesting ideas here that could make this really quite a special place along our street study area. And some pictures of things that we know of around the country or that we've done or know about that describe some of the ideas that I've been talking about. So on the left is a gas station. Actually, this one was built around 1940. That's been converted to an ice cream shop and restaurant. It's a very popular spot. This is about a mile away from my house in Omaha, Nebraska. And some ideas for historic storytelling and monumentation along the historic path. So in the middle, a series of 24 monuments that are installed on what used to be the Stockyards area in Omaha that tell the story of that facility and of the South Omaha community. The perpendicular columns along the Embarcadero in San Francisco, which some of you may have seen, that tells the story of the seaport of San Francisco in a very intriguing and also continuous and coherent way. And finally, an idea of what this could look like. So the Sombrero restaurant is on the right. The drainage, we're looking from Main Street north, and you can see what this kind of a feature might look like at maturity. Remember that these are character sketches, so they're not literally going to be exactly what happens, but they're there to make people think and to show you some of the possibilities that could happen. Our second major site is the Railway Street Nucleus. And this is, we almost kind of jokingly call this the tilted square because a lot of the paths and features in it, as you can see in the middle here, formed a square that's rotated about 45 degrees. A key part here is using the old mill site as a public open space that would include performance space that might recall some of the boards of the mill that's now been disassembled. the reuse of the Postal Mill building, the big three-story brick building that has the mural on its north side, um, the redevelopment or the reuse for commercial purposes of both the hardware store of Fred's Hardware and of the laundromat, with an eating terrace potentially. That this too is a great site for eating facilities or specialty foods to complement what most people would like to see as a brew pub in the ground floor of the Postal building. Um, the steakhouse we hope can reopen, and by strengthening the parking behind it, creates a better parking resource both for the steakhouse and for City Hall. Some opportunities for new development. A, uh, a wonderful little tree park where you see the number 8 that has 3 specimen trees in it that are just behind the pantry, and a variety of cut throughs and passages that tie everything together from Church to State through Main Street. So a very exciting group of possibilities open up as the center of our district. And maybe one of the most unusual ideas would be viewing the upper floors of the Postal building as innovation or entrepreneurial space. But it's not such a strange idea around the country. So here you see a couple of projects that illustrate this idea. The one on the left is called Banbury Place. It's in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. That actually was an old U.S. rubber plant. The Postal building is about 15,000 square feet. This is about 2 million, so it's a much bigger project. But it has everything from artists to T-shirt shops to high-tech companies to other kinds of startup businesses. On the right is another conversion of an old mill building. This is in Bloomington, Indiana, and it's a small business incubator. So imagine the Postal building as being a center of activity for businesses, for people to do their thing, um, with a brew pub on the ground floor and 2 levels of this kind of multi-purpose space above. Another advantage is that this is pretty much shell space, so it opens up a lot of variety of economic incentives, including TIF, tax increment financing, and historic tax credits. But also because it's basically open space, it's a lot cheaper and easier to develop than housing or other more intensive commercial uses might be. And then here's an image of what this new center might look like as we look toward the mural. Here we're kind of flying over Railway Street. City Hall's on the right, the gazebo park on the left. You can see in the upper right-hand part of the drawing the idea for a performance space that might recall some of the images and structure of the mill that's been recently dismantled, possibly a water feature, a good deal of tree planting because it gives us the opportunity to do that. On the left, the reuse of the laundromat and hardware buildings, here with dining that might even be raised terraces above a common space. We've added significantly to the parking inventory around this area simply again by cooperating and by redesign. So we're excited about this and think that it could be really a great and economically vital center for the city, that again builds off the history of the community. As we move down, we come to the Jefferson Street entrance, and the big news here would be again more effective consolidation of parking. This would be the lots to the west of Subway. Also, a good parking facility there with a direct connection to Main Street would really help a lot of the residences along the back of the buildings. And one thing that's unique about downtown Mascoutah are the people who live behind buildings in very unique accommodations. Um, but the other big element here involves the market shelters along the north side of the Jefferson Street parking lot. So here's an idea of what this might look like. This is something that we've adapted from another plan that we did for Fort Scott, Kansas, but it's the same idea of having a parking lot that's kind of too obvious, but on the other hand, it's too important to lose, and defining it by having a shelter along the edge of it that can be used for farmers market, for art shows, for a variety of things. And here the adjacent parking becomes a real asset because people can back up into it if they're vendors or exhibitors and unload and be right there. So an idea for how to keep the parking lot in place where the parking is really badly needed, but also to provide definition and use to the edge of it so that the space is defined and it creates a really positive entrance into downtown. And then finally, the eastern edge at Holy Childhood. Here we are proposing a promenade that extends the axis, that is the direct line of sight from the steeple to Main Street. We've done this in a way that actually adds 10 parking stalls to the Holy Childhood lot, which is really good. The design is a little bit more efficient in terms of not having the dead ends that we currently have. That's done by moving the drive aisles a bit, and then making use of Church Street as well with diagonal parking. That promenade could continue across Main Street and then continue to the south to State Street with, again, some workshop or entrepreneurial spaces or live-work housing where people work on the first floor and live above their workshop or store along South Street on either side of the promenade. The number 8 shows you the redeveloped mobile home park with what we see as affordable cottage housing with interior parking and a greenway down the middle. So that an image of what that might look like is right here. That pays real respect to the church, that brings the church into the street and maintains the parking inventory that the church needs in order to accommodate its needs. So it's a very exciting thing in terms of how this could be done. There are a variety of ways that it could be funded or executed as well, but an idea that we hope you will find intriguing and a real possibility. So in summary, each of these 4 key civic focuses, the museum and history walk, the Railway Street intersection with all the rich opportunities that it presents, the entrance at Jefferson Street, and really taking advantage of the wonderful landmark of Holy Childhood and bringing that into the street as another focus for orientation and strengthening the street's image are things that we think are exciting, and we hope you will find exciting as well.
The intersection of Route 4 and Onyx Drive will become a key intersection as the area begins to develop further. There is a lot of available space for future development in this area, and with the current growth rates in the city of Mascoutah, this will likely develop quickly. As the entry point into town, the traffic control at this intersection will become a key part in the planning process and preparing for the future growth. Not only that, but providing pedestrian and bike facilities will also become important to fit into the city bike ped network. We recommend completing an intersection design study with IDOT for this intersection to establish a plan for necessary traffic control, like a signal or roundabout at this intersection, and access points for nearby businesses before future development begins to occur rapidly.